Cherete opantes, que emi cousin Leonides or Leonidas if you prefer. Okay, so cousin Leonid coming to give you another video about Koine Greek, and today is purely on the grammar. So let's have a look at that. So the reason why is the video that I posted yesterday. I was talking about the aorist without giving too many details. So today let's have a look at some details. The grammar of Koine Greek, fun with the aorist. Essentially also the grammar of classical Greek, and that is okay. We might also call it the preterite or something like that. So going over to slide 2. Okay, so I give a timeline, so this is the way that I usually teach it. Alright, so let's have a look. We've got past, present, and future. So we actually have far more tenses in English than we actually consider. Okay, so let's be aware that when we're complaining about how many tables that we have to learn in Greek or in Latin or what have you, okay, we don't actually have to learn tables at all. So we just have to learn the pronoun, and we have to learn one ending. So if we have I run, you run, she runs, okay, then we only have one ending. We run, you run, and they run, okay, and done. Okay, now we might complain that unlike in English, we have to learn the endings for every single tense, okay, and yes, that is something that's new, okay, but the thing is that in some respects, learning Latin or learning Greek, either Koine or classical, is actually a lot more straightforward than those people who have to come from overseas and to learn English for the first time. Okay, so we're given a timeline. So we've got just a straight line. We've got an arrow at the end. Okay, so that's great. We're going to ignore what it says in Doctor Who about time being a wibbly wobbly thing. Okay, we're going to totally ignore that, and we're going to say that for basic people who are talking about time, then it's a continuum. Okay, it's a straight continuum which has laws according to language. We won't talk about quantum physics or anything of that kind. So we've got the division between past, present, and future. Okay, so we know about that. Now, within that division, we have a number of different tenses. Let's have a look at the continuum. Okay. So we've got the pluperfect is about as far past as you can go. Okay, the pluperfect is I had done something, or she had done something. Okay, that's great. We've got the aorist is completed action. We dealt with that yesterday. Okay, and it would be something like she did. Okay, as we saw yesterday, we saw a translation of the aorist, which is often seen in an English Bible as you have heard, and that's kind of closer to the perfect in meaning, but we'll talk about that in a moment. Now, the imperfect, meaning the action is incomplete, I describe this as being describing a process. Now, even though I've put the pluperfect as far back as we can go and the aorist further back than the imperfect, strictly the aorist is a process that stretches pretty far back. So we could have something like the Jurassic period had ended. Okay, I'm doing this not to show off, but just to show they can go as far back in time as we like. And flowers were beginning to bloom for the first time. We're talking about a process. Okay, were beginning to bloom. Okay, so that issue is not that they bloomed for the first time. We could also have that as a sentence in the Cretaceous period, but we've got the idea that we're talking about a process occurring. So it's not suddenly that someone decided that the Jurassic period ended and then suddenly flowers bloomed. Okay, done. Been there, done for that. Home for tea and metals. The point is that we can actually have the imperfect going back towards the pluperfect. So we've really got the imperfect as a continuum. Okay, it could be right before the present. Okay, kind of like teacher or parent enters the room and they say to us when we've stopped doing what we're doing, okay, what were you doing? Okay, and that what were you doing? That process is just a moment or two before the present. Okay. Now I've put here on this continuum that the perfect is really another present tense. Let's explain what I mean there. So if we're used to, say, Latin, then the perfect tense is completed action, and it might be towards where the aorist is. The Latin perfect actually does what the Greek perfect does and what the aorist does. Okay, let's go on from there. So what it means by the perfect is the action of something that is complete. Okay, so the question of something like, have you cleaned your room? Okay, we'll take the parent example again. Have you cleaned your room? They're not asking whether the action was done in the past. The action is, what they're asking is the action complete now? So it's really another present tense. So are you in the state of having cleaned your room already? Okay, so they're really interested in the present tense. And we've actually got the same in certainly classical Greek. The biblical Greek, the Koine Greek, is a little less specific, but that's okay. Now, the future is pretty obvious in Greek. The reason I put future perfect with an asterisk next to it is that you will never functionally see a future perfect in Greek. It does occur a handful of times, but we're really talking a handful of times, and I can't think of ever seeing it within Koine Greek, and certainly not within Biblical Greek. But it occurs a handful of times, and that's why I put the asterisk next to it. Now, the reason I put it at all is because this is everywhere in Latin, absolutely everywhere. You'll see it everywhere. You'll see it in subordinating clauses. You'll see it in a lot of places. Now, even though there are some grammar books, not very many, only one that I can think of which actually has a table for the future perfect in it. Okay, is really kind of more theoretical than anything else. Okay, so let's go into the tables. Now, let's have a look at the tables and how to use them at the same time. Okay. So functionally, this is very similar to what we get in classical Greek. And in fact, it's virtually exactly the same. Let's have a look at that. Now, but I did check that these endings are basically the same in Koine Greek as they were in classical Greek. So let's have a look. Okay, we're going to kind of ignore the accents. You have to put your breathing at the front if you've got a vowel or you've got a row. Okay, so if you've got a row, it's always a rough breathing, which is why if you have in English words that begin with RH, then you are kind of guaranteed those were originally Greek words, like rhythm or something like that. Okay, ekusa. Okay, so we know from the breathing direction that it's got to be air, not hair. Okay, air. Now the accentation is actually fairly straightforward for verbs, but we might do another video on that another time. Okay, so we got ekusa, ekusas, ekuser. And we could actually say that even though these endings are not very similar to what we can see in the present tense, we got similar kind of rules. So notice we got the second person. Okay, first person is I and we. Okay, second person is you and use. Sorry, I don't like generally using that word use, but I've heard it stated by several people as being your. Okay, so if you like that better, you can. So you singular and you plural. We haven't really had any difference between those two since Middle English, and certainly in Old English they're different. So we got kind of two, the and ye. Okay, so if you prefer those two, the is the singular, and ye is the plural. Okay, and then we've got the plural. So, sorry, third person singular and third person plural. So, ekuse and ekusan. Okay, that's great. And then we're going to add the imperative. Let's have a look at that. So, we talked about in the video the fact that the A of akuor changes to an eta because the vowel lengthens when it becomes aorist. So the vowel lengthening is just a symbol that it's past tense, and that's one of the reasons that the perfect tense doesn't actually lengthen in most cases. It does in some cases, but it doesn't lengthen because it's not strictly a past tense. And we can see this shown by the imperative and the infinitive. Now, this is something we can get confused about. How can you possibly have an aorist infinitive? Do this in the past or something like that? Listen to this in the past. And the answer is that really it's talking about aspect. Okay, so we can see it's not talking about tense because we haven't got an augment, and we can't actually have the augment there. It cannot be, it cannot exist. Now, the ending we've got akuson, okay, known as the accentation. The ending we've got, that's going to be singular imperative. So if we know the singular imperative of the present, akue. Now the difference is akue is listen and keep listening. So for example, okay, let's use the parent example again. If a parent is talking to their child and it's kind of like listen up, then it's the idea of don't listen once and never listen again. It's the idea of listen to my advice and keep on abiding by it. But if we have the aorist imperative, then what's going on there is that it's advising for something to only happen the once, and to only happen the once or for a limited duration. Okay, and the same for the plural acusate. So listen up, you guys. Okay, and the idea is that it's going to be of short duration, this listening. So maybe if I were to give a command about this vodcast, then we could say acusate, listen up to this, or we could say acuete, which means listen up and keep on listening, meaning listen to the advice in the video. Okay, and we got the same thing with the infinitive. Let's have a look at that. So the first thing we learnt was probably that the active infinitive ends in epsilon iota nu. Okay, so to listen, akuen. Okay, it's not a contract, therefore it's just going to be akuen. Okay, but if we want to listen the once rather than to listen and keep listening, akuen. Okay, then we're going to have akusai. Okay, notice the accentation. So there is an optative form that is also akusai, but it's got different accentation. So if you've ever thought that the accentation is of no use whatsoever, it does actually tell you sometimes what form it is. Alright, that's all today, so just a short one, and I will talk to you later, so chairete.